or a part-time function. And let me correct myself. I've been saying manager. We're going to call him the communications director. So tonight we have the revised position description in front of you that we're asking you to approve so that we can move forward with letting Josh focus exclusively on his communication responsibilities and move the grants coordinator function over to Henry.
I'm sure we're going to have quite a few questions, but I do, I just want to begin by saying I fully support this change in this position. When we created this position a couple of years ago, I fully supported it. I believe that communication is the most important thing that we do as a city, is to communicate with our constituents. And I think that Josh has done an extraordinary job. He has taken on, that dashboard that he created. He went on YouTube videos and learned how to do it. I mean, he's really taken the initiative to elevate our communication. We saw the presentation that he gave just a few months ago, what he has done in terms of social media, the number of engagements and the number of, of responses has just been extraordinary. And it's been, and I think that, if you follow that social media, he even takes the time to go back and he responds to questions that come up. So I think he's just done an extraordinary job. He's been working 7 days a week, nonstop. And I think that, we really need to realign things. So I fully support this. And so I just want to, at this, express that. And, we do need to talk about this grants. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of questions like who will take that on? Because Josh has also been doing that, and he's done quite a good job of managing that. But he can't do it all. One other thing that I would like to point out is that we want to see, we've talked about this a couple of times in this committee about engaging with the community that's not on social media. And we talked about, how do we do that through Channel 79, through, other, other expanded media coverage in some way. And if we really want to elevate it, if we really want to move in that direction, he's got to have the time to do that. So that being said, questions? Mr. Burnett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My questions are around specifics. When we looked at this position 3 years ago, we did not have a communications person. We did have a part-time grant writer. And we combined them together because we didn't think there was enough work for a full-time grant writer, and we didn't think there was enough work for a full-time communications person. So we said by putting them together, that would be a full job. That 3 years later, it has transformed itself, COVID helping in that regard, and that the importance of having a full-time person dedicated to communication. So specifically, who is going to handle the grant writing piece? Because there was a fairly large voice stated that we should be focusing more on grant writing and pursuing grants and not being reactive to grants, but proactive to grants. And having a resource go find grants for the city, as opposed to waiting for the traditional grants that we do year after year to come in and we just respond to them. So, so with that in mind, if the communications manager has been full-time focused on communications, which is very important and needed, I would assume that the proactive piece of trying to go after grants has not been happening. So, or not at the level that it might happen. So my question, specifics, who's going to take over the grant writing piece? Because that is an important piece that could be revenue generating for the city. And the second question is also, if we are changing the position from a communications manager to a communications director, I'm assuming that there's dollars associated with that change.
Let me answer the second question first. Josh's salary right now is just under $80,000 a year. We would move him up to the next salary level in the ordinance salary chart, which would put him at about 86 and change. So there's about a $6,000 increase, $6,000 or $7,000 increase that will be associated with it. That is within the mayor's budget to absorb. So there'll be no additional monies requested to make this happen. On the first part of your question, you remind me of all our conversations 3 years ago. This is not a grant writer position. This is the grants coordinator position. Each of the various operating departments has their own person that has been responsible historically for flagging and obtaining and applying for the grants. Like the health department has a whole bunch of people on their staff, and they just hired an epidemiologist that was a result of the grant they applied for and received. So the function that this person, Josh, had provided is not so much what we would all think as the traditional grant writer who looks at the various government and grant opportunities on a daily basis. It's someone who's coordinating the efforts amongst other city personnel. And I have to say that Josh has been on top of all of this grant coordination opportunity that has come up over the past few years. And, you know, grants come and go, and grants change with the times. They change with COVID, and Josh has been very active in coordinating all of these efforts. And I don't think that we've left a nickel on the table, at least the feedback that we've gotten from Josh about his efforts to make sure that all of the grants that are out there that are available to the city are being pursued by the various departments. Now, who's going to do it? That's sort of to be determined. You know, we're still not struggling, we're still working our way through the reorganization and the retirement incentive program and the sub-reorganization we're doing as a result of some of those jobs vacating and changing job duties and changing positions. So the short-term answer to your question is Josh will continue to do those functions until we have either put those functions on another position in Henry's world, in the finance world, or we've established a part-time position that we will recruit someone for who this will be their only function. But until then, Josh will continue to juggle the complete workload of communications and the grant coordinator aspects.
Mr. Sachinelli.
Thank you. So I'm behind this. I think there's a need to expand the communication role. When we first kind of dipped our toe in the water, we didn't know what was going to come out of it, but especially through COVID, it's become a more dynamic role. And I think even in the one-on-one conversations I've had with other counselors in the group, we know that there's actually opportunity beyond where we even are. I have similar concerns to Counselor Burnett on the coordinator side. The backup has the roles and responsibilities of what the communication manager, or I guess now the communications director. But under Henry's leadership, what are we looking to revise what a coordinator's role is? Is there going to be a new description there?
I don't think so, but that's a question that I'd have to work through with Henry as this evolves away from Josh and into a new position. And, it is the feedback that we've gotten from Josh, and I think it's consistently been given to everybody, is that the grant application process that is located within the departments is working very well. And we're not missing opportunities out there like we all have feared that we would, that those grants are being pursued and obtained by the city to the best of our ability. So I don't know that, I don't envision it changing, but we've been changing a whole bunch of different things over the past 3 years as we worked through all that. And as you know, Henry has his own ideas about how things work. So I'm not sure if it will be whatever we carve out will fit exactly in with Henry, but certainly the primary function of coordinating those grants will stay with whoever this person is, whether it's a new part-timer or incorporated into one of his current staff members.
Okay, so all right, so let me ask it this way. What metrics or measurables did we have in place, even while Josh was a grant writer, to establish the fact that we left no money on the table? Like, where does that statement come from?
Well, that came from a write-up that Josh sent me and a few others earlier today. I don't know that we have a chart. And if you want chapter and verse on that, then I think we'll have to get Josh to come in and answer your questions more specifically. But I know that he has been pursuing the grants that fall within his area of responsibility, as well as coordinating the other ones. But I don't know, and I do not have a chart that I can give you that can show you X and Y, and I don't really know that chart exists, but we'd have to have Josh come in and talk to you more about how that has worked.
And that's fair. And honestly, my sense is I don't know that it does exist. And I think that's my point in saying that we may have an opportunity to revisit what a grant coordinator does. Maybe there's an opportunity for additional accountability, some type of metrics and measurables to be put into place to make sure that we are capturing all of that funding that may be available. Maybe we are. I'm not questioning it. I know Josh did do a great job and he did everything in his ability with what he was tasked with. But it's worth asking that question.
Right.
Yeah, I'd agree with you, Mr. Stachinelli. I think that, there are, I do have a list, not a list, but, a narrative from Josh about a number of grants that we have received, some in amounts of 1.5 million, 43,000, 524,000, but we don't have an actual list, an actual rundown. And I think that would be beneficial to have. And I think that there is some room to redefine what a grants coordinator might be able to do. So, yeah. Any other questions? Ms. Johnson.
I thank you very much, Chair. I do see the need to make this a full-time communications role, clearly. So I support that. I do echo the questions of Councilmember Stachinelli and Burnett, because of the fact that, coming from higher education, academia, the nonprofit world, grants folks pay for themselves, right? It's like that's the model. So it would be a real value add if we could have somebody come in, pay for their own salary, bring in overhead, and then also contribute to a revenue stream for the city. That would be a definite win. So my only pause would be that we would lose that momentum at some point and not have this really come to fruition, right? I think that would be a real important thing for us to think about, so we don't lose this to the ether, as it were, in some kind of department switchover.
I can assure you that Josh is not going to give up his current responsibilities on grant coordinator until you are all satisfied that we have found a place to put that either on one of our other staff members or as a part-timer. So I don't think you have to worry about that.
Right. I guess my question, though, then to be more direct, is this will come before us again with a new plan or at least job description when this moves to Henry Dakowitz's office?
For the grant writer side, yes.
Okay, great.
And if you all want to authorize the funding of a new FTE in Henry's world, I'll take that to him tomorrow and we'll hire a full-timer doing this. Can we vote on that?
Right,
Let's hold off on that.
Yeah.
No, but I do think that certainly not in this budget cycle, but, you know, I think that there's room for discussion on a grant writer. You know, you bring up a really good point, Ms. Johnson, about, you know, a grant writer, an actual grant writer paying for themselves. I don't know about, you know, would that grant writer be the coordinator as well? You know, so, you know, I think that there's room for discussion in the future on that.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason why the grant writing responsibilities are sort of split up now is because we have such a broad spectrum of expertise needed, from writing a grant to apply for a fire truck versus writing a grant to apply for a grant for an epidemiologist, right? I have not yet met the person who can do both of those grant writing things without some level of tapping into the expertise resident in those two departments. But listen, all of these issues are valid issues, and we'll have to address them as we move forward and figure out where the responsibilities will reside, how broad those responsibilities are, and if indeed we do come back to you with an overture for an FTE to do this.
Mr. Burnett?
Yeah, I'm very supportive. I'm supportive of the communication director position. I'm even more supportive of Josh being in that role. I think he's done an outstanding job in communicating and being that key focal point that both internal and external contacts could go to for communications about the city of Norwalk. I know even personally, if someone came to me asking a question about how can I get information, if I direct them to Josh, he gets them the answer. He's a key point of contact, and we need that kind of attention and focus for the city of Norwalk and all the things that we're trying to do. My unreadiness, though, is the fact that I don't know the time sensitivity to what we're discussing tonight. Why can't we have this kind of in one nice bow? You know, Josh moving into the communication director role, and we know exactly where the communication coordinator work is going to go, as opposed to having it kind of hanging out there that, well, Josh will continue to monitor that piece until we decide at some other point what we're going to do with it. Why don't we just do it all at once and have it nice and clean? So I don't know if there's sensitivity, a time sensitivity to us moving Josh into the director role and kind of leaving the grant coordinator piece in limbo at this point. Is there some time element to this that we can't, you know, work with Henry's department, know exactly who's picking it up, have it all nice and clean, transition, and we know exactly what's going to happen?
Well, I think there's a couple of answers to your question. Number one, we couldn't pursue the bifurcation of these responsibilities without your authorization. So it would have been taking actions that were not authorized if we began recruiting for a part-time grants coordinator tomorrow, and the Common Council, who has to approve ordinance position descriptions, says, well, how did that happen? So we really can't work on establishing a part-time grants coordinator position and recruiting for it until you guys say, yeah, let's do that. That's a good idea. Let's bifurcate these responsibilities. Let's establish the communications director position, and let's move forward from that. That's one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is that Josh has been doing a job and a half, and if at the end of the day we're going to move him into a director's job and throw him a little bit more compensation, and he's been doing that job and a half for over a year now, maybe it's time to do it.
You know, I understand the difficulties. We do have to approve this before you can move forward.
Right.
And moving this, you know, the grants coordinator into the finance department. I do get that. But I would just, you know, add that I'm going to task you Ray and Henry to get that moving as quickly as possible. Because I mean, just, thinking of Josh and the fact that he's been working a job and a half, 7 days a week, no break for this past year, he can continue doing that knowing that he's making a little bit more money. But, in order for him to really take on the responsibilities of the new position, we really would like him to do that as quickly as possible.
I agree. I will accept that responsibility.
Awesome. Any other questions? All right, I'm calling for a vote. All in favor? Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I understand your hesitance, but we'll make it happen. And Mr. Burnett, we're just going to call Mr. Dakowitz. We're going to call Mr. Burney. We're going to make it happen. Okay, so we have a unanimous vote. So congratulations to Mr. Morgan.
Is there any way we can set some kind of time parameters around when that's going to happen? I mean, my unreadiness is just having it hanging out there. And I don't think it's right to leave this hanging on Josh. I know he's going to keep an eye on it. I know he's going to do that. I just know that. But from our standpoint of responsibility, I just think it needs to be tied up a little cleaner. So if we are going to pursue it, and I'm sure we are, can we put some kind of time parameter on what direction we're going to go, whether it's going to be a part-time person, whether Mr. Dakowitz is going to find somebody to absorb this role? Can we give some kind of time parameter? Maybe, I don't know, do we bring this back? And I don't know, Ray, you tell us, is it 30 days, 60 days? How much time do we think we need to just wrap this up?
Well, the first thing I would say is Josh nor the city is going to leave these responsibilities hanging. Josh is going to continue to do what he has been doing regarding these responsibilities until we have someone else in place to absorb them. Secondly, I will talk to Henry about this tomorrow. And I will, we're all pretty busy, but I'll get back to you in 30 days with where we're going by the next personnel committee meeting, where we're going with this. How's that? 30 days, is that fine? You don't look happy, Greg.
No, I don't know the answer. So if you're telling me 30 days, then I'll go by your expertise. If you're telling me it takes 30 days. So I don't know the answer if it's 30, 60, 90. So if you tell me 30, that's what's on the recording. That's what's on the record.
That's what I'd like to see. I think that's reasonable. Ms. Johnson?
Yeah, and to echo Council Members Burnett's, because I second that. And I think 30 days, if we can reconvene in next month's meeting with a really set idea from you all after speaking together with some actionable items for us need be, like, that would be great. Because I too do not want, I know he's getting paid a little more after this vote, but I don't want Josh to be undermined in his role. And very quickly, having done grant work myself, even though you're just managing grants, with deadlines popping up, like we can't have him distracted from the work at hand that he really needs to do. And and I think that I don't want this to be like a kick the can situation where like 3 months from now, we're still talking about it or waiting on some kind of update. That would be ideally for me what we avoid. So just to put that on the record. Yeah.
Okay, any other final thoughts? All right, do I have a motion? Mr. Roberts, was that you? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, all in favor? All right.
Thank you all.
Great work tonight. Great work. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.